Welcome back to GTD, another fun-filled episode. Last week and the weekend, especially in baseball, was really fun for baseball fans, except for fans of certain teams. We'll get into that, Micah, later.
I wonder which teams those would be.
Another huge weekend for NASCAR. I mean, their momentum is just killer right now. They're on an all-time high, I feel like, especially in my lifetime, the consecutive number of races. I mean, you have the Jimmy Johnson days where if you're a Jimmy Johnson fan, it was great. But now if you're just a fan of anybody, it's great. And then we had the Miami Grand Prix we'll cover, as well as getting ready for not the Italian Grand Prix, but another Grand Prix in Italy with the Imola Grand Prix. So let's just get right into baseball. We had some huge news with Paul Skenes making his debut and some record-setting pitching matchups. But we'll start, as always, with the bat flip of the week. And this week, it goes to a guy we talked about at the beginning of the year, Teoscar Hernandez, saying he was off to an incredible start and what could be an incredible season. Kind of slowed up a little bit, moved down the lineup after getting moved back up to fifth. Nonetheless, hits a grand slam in Petco Park to get the Dodgers a 5-0 lead, and it was just beautiful. He freeze frames after he smashes it to the beautiful building they have in Petco, just the warehouse, smashes it, freeze frame, jogs with the bat, and then does a little underhand softball toss, and then just loops the bat. So it's it was so smooth. The first time I watched it, I was like, whoa, he didn't even that was so, they had no right being that smooth. Just whoop, and then the bat just goes in and over in. It was pretty beautiful, and I've never seen one like it. It was super unique, and that's what I loved about it. But, I mean, yeah, just an incredible hit from Teoscar Hernandez. We knew he was going to have home runs this year because just the start he got off to, especially with that Dodgers team playing in LA. So, I mean, it's no surprise. That team has been off to an incredible start.
Yeah, definitely. We were talking last week, too, about or a couple weeks ago about where did all the bat flips go, revival of the bat flips. And these last 2 weeks, we've had some great ones. So maybe they were listening, and it's good to see the real bat flips coming back a little bit.
They're still far and in between, too. The ones we're getting are good.
That's true.
But it's still we're getting one or two, We're not getting a whole lot of bangers like we were, years ago. And maybe they have kind of run their course. We don't know yet. I still love them. I think a lot of the fans still love them, but maybe some fans are getting tired of them or don't want to get a little chin music next time they're at the dish. So, I mean, maybe there's something new on the horizon. Maybe Tatis can come up with something even more mind-boggling, and we'll have another, just crazy Bautista-type moment where we see that and go,
wow, he's going to throw the bat at the pitcher
for forever. Yeah, like Bryce Harper, but with the wooden baseball bat, that may get him kicked out for good this time. Maybe a little harsh than the PED scandal. But like we said, Paul Skenes made his debut, and as fans of teams that are both in the Central, I was really excited to watch him pitch, but I'm also kind of scared because I'm like, he's going to be in the Central for a long time probably, especially if the Pittsburgh loves him. And I mean, he finally made his debut, long anticipated. Numbers in the minor league were historic, but we knew it wasn't going to be just like that in the minor leagues. But nonetheless, got off to a really good start, especially if you're a rookie. Going 4 innings, 6 hits, 3 earned runs, 2 walks, 7 Ks, but his average fastball velocity was over 100, which I want to hear your take on the 100-mile-an-hour average velocity.
Okay, so as a guy who watches a ton of Hunter Green pitch for Cincinnati, this is really something that reminds me a lot of Hunter Green's rookie season, just pounding the strike zone, getting those strikeouts, also giving up some contact. But I'm really worried about these guys' arms. Hunter Green has already had Tommy John. Paul Skenes, you worry that he's on a fast track to that. So even though it's really impressive and it's obviously working for these guys in games, you just worry how long they can sustain that. Because you see guys like Steven Strasburg who come in with that velocity and then just fall apart completely. So you hope you don't see that for either Green or Skenes. And right now, Skenes obviously looked great. It's great to see him up in the MLB. Finally, I think he was in the minors a bit too long, honestly, because it was clear he was completely outmatching the guys he was facing. But I just really hope his arm can hold up to this stress, because you haven't really seen pitchers be able to consistently throw at these numbers over the course of their career in the modern era.
Yeah, and Skenes has got a little funky arm motion too. He's not over the top, so he's got a little more stretched on his elbow than most guys who are throwing 100 miles an hour. So that only adds to the equation of how long can he sustain this. But my big take on, okay, he throws 102, 101, averages 100 miles an hour. Guys see that all the time. I mean, especially Pittsburgh's got Aroldis Chapman in the bullpen. And Aroldis
Yeah.
Chapman's been around the league for years at this point. I mean, guys just used to seeing this. It's just another day at the ballpark to go in and see 100 miles an hour. So it's not like 5 years ago where if a starter was sitting 100 miles an hour, you're kind of amping yourself up for the game. Now it's just, well, let's go get him, Like you don't have
Yeah.
to worry as much about seeing him. But I will say, he has a little splitter that has a little sinker action. Some people call it a splinker right now. That pitch is pretty good. The movement that he's got and the deception with his height and arm angle is pretty wicked. And I think that gives him a better game than it is with his fastball. Because there was at times he was a little erratic with his fastball. I mean, he couldn't hit a spot for a little bit with his fastball. He had to rely on his movement to get guys out.
Yeah, I definitely think that's really going to make a difference for him because I know I mentioned Hunter Green. Even though Hunter Green has that lively fastball, his only other pitch is really that slider. He's a two-pitch pitcher as a starter. I don't think that's going to be a problem for Skenes. He has that splinter you talked about, the big breaking ball, has a changeup that can work really well for him sometimes. And if you can get all three of those other pitches going, plus really dial in that fastball, I think that makes him a lot more dangerous than a pitcher like Green, where you can just sit on the fastball and spit on that slider most of the time. So I think that more well-rounded pitch arsenal is really going to help him and maybe make him not have to throw that 100 every time to get guys out.
Right. No, I mean, I agree. But not a perfect first start in your majors, but good enough, and he'll build on it. It was his first start, got all the jitters out of the way. Not only his first start, but one of the biggest pitching first starts since, Strasburg. I mean, it's just, there was a lot of people there, a lot of momentum, a lot of pressure building, so he did fine. But when you're playing bar trivia down the line with your kids or whatever, and they ask you who was the first MLB player to get a hit off Paul Skenes, do you know who it is?
Nico Horner, I believe. I believe you put a tweet out about that.
So Nico Horner had the first home run hit off Paul Skenes.
Home run,
which is pretty cool. And which is also a trivia question because Horner's like a 8 to 12 home run a year guy. But the first hit was Miles Mastrobuoni. His first hit of the year, in fact.
Really?
A guy who the Cubs have platooned. Yes. The Cubs have platooned him from the minors to the majors, minors to the majors for like 2 years at this point. And Miles Mastrobuoni not only got one hit, but 2 hits against Paul Skenes. So if that's going to be bar trivia down the road, and only the Cubs diehards will know that because Miles Mastrobuoni is not a name you hear very often when talking about the sport of baseball. So just kind of interesting. Another interesting tidbit
that's
for the
because
game.
he's terrible.
Right. When the Pirates pulled Paul Skenes, he immediately requested a trade following the Pirates' bullpen malfunction, we'll call it. When they got so Paul Skenes walked 2 guys to put 2 guys on. And then the bullpen hit a batter, walked a batter, walked a batter, walked a batter, walked a batter. Now it's like a 6-5 ball game in the Pirates' favor. Then Mike Tauchman ropes a single. As soon as he ropes a single, the sky comes apart and it starts pouring. Okay. 2.5 hours later, play resumes. It's a tie ball game, 6-6, bases loaded. The other bullpen guys have just walked everybody in their sister. So now you just got to come in and throw strikes. No, not these Pirates. These Pirates they're getting in the heads, right? So they walk more batters, get more runs. Now the Cubs have an 8-6 lead. End up giving up a bunch of home runs, blow it. Pirates win 10-9. But, what a Pirates mouth. I mean, every time the Pirates play the Cubs, something weird happens. You remember Javi Baez a few years ago with the ground ball to first and gets to third, So I guess they just crap themselves when they see these champions, these champions. If you can read that.
Okay.
You don't have one of these shirts in your
down,
lifetime. Bud. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm living in the past, but you have to live way in the past if you're a Reds fan.
I was
At least
not
I
even
saw
born.
this one with my eyes. I was about to say I saw this one with my eyes and ears. But let's talk more pitching. I know you enjoyed the Tyler Glasnow Michael King matchup.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So the Tyler Glasnow Cy Young hype train that I started at the beginning of the year it's really just taking off. He's locked in right now, and he matched up against Michael King of the Padres in their beautiful City Connect uniforms, and what a game this was. I'm a big fan of a classic pitcher's duel, and this was objectively the best pitcher's duel of all time. It being the first time that 2 pitchers had each gone 7 innings or more and both struck out 10 or more batters. Both these guys had their their best stuff working. I wanted to say ace stuff, but I don't think Michael King has ace stuff in the locker. He was just pitching really well. So it was
Yeah.
a very entertaining game. And I love games like this. I think so many fans now are caught up with, oh, we need a bunch of runs. We need a bunch of runs. And as a Reds fan, we definitely do need a bunch of runs because the offense couldn't hit a beach ball with a cricket bat right now. But sometimes these big pitchers duels are just really a different aspect of baseball that can be really entertaining. You see two guys just completely locked in the zone, both dominant, and neither lineup could touch either guy, and it was such an entertaining game to watch. And once again, Tyler Glasnow for NL Cy Young. Please stay healthy.
Yeah, no, it was ridiculous, and we've talked about Kyle Glass now. He's got the stuff. The only thing that you kind of look at and go is his injury record, but I'm not going to say anything because last time we talked about Mike Trout, we know what happened. But
Yeah,
we're hoping Kyle Glass can continue his thing. And I know we've talked about Imola a lot, and I have to bring him up, but this is crazy to say that he had a bad start, his last start. And let me just read you the stat line for his worst start of the year with 7 innings, 7 hits, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts in 7 innings, but 2 earned runs. He gave up 2 earned runs
what a
in
scrub!
7 innings.
Send him to Double A immediately. Get him gone.
Yeah, back to Japan, boy. Back to Japan. But I like how it's just crazy how we're talking about that stat going, oh man. But like that's just how crazy
Get it together.
Like Rangers, yeah, like Ranger Suarez. I mean, Suarez has been incredible. I don't think his last start. I think he gave up 3 runs, but before that, he's been nutty insane. But it's just funny that some of these guys that we're talking about early in the season, they give up a run, and we're like, oh, time to trade them, trade bait.
Yeah. I think what helps Glasnow's case, though, in this Cy Young debate is the strikeout numbers. He has been right at the top of the MLB in strikeouts and just keeps punching guys out consistently. So I think if he does win the Cy Young, I don't know that his ERA will get quite down where Imanaga's is by the end of the year. Ooh, tongue twister. But I think he definitely has the strikeout numbers to maybe eke out a gap that way. And maybe that number impresses some voters. You never know.
Well, he's got 73 strikeouts in 57 innings. I mean, Zach Wheeler's so he's leading the league. Zach Wheeler's in second with 65. So, I mean, he's got a few more strikeouts than Wheeler in second. Castillo has 64, but he's in another division or another league anyways. But, yeah, Glasnow's strikeout numbers are definitely something to keep an eye on. His whip's still sub 1, so, I mean, he's fine there. His ERA is slightly inflated, but, you know, I mean – With the Cy Young voters and the way pitching's treated nowadays, you don't know what they're going to take into account. Some people love wins, some people hate wins, some people like depth in innings, but you never know. So the only way to find out really with the Cy Young this year, because I feel like it's going to be super tight. Most awards in sports, you know who's going to win. The Cy Young this year is one of those that I don't think we'll know unless someone just goes on an incredible run. As of right now, I don't really think we know. I think Rookie of the Year, if you had to pick a Rookie of the Year right now for the National League, I think you have to go Imanaga. But as far as Cy Young, I don't know if he wins Cy Young. You know, so like, who's your Cy Young? If you had to pick Cy Young right now, who would it be?
If I had to pick it right now, it's hard not to go Imanaga just because of how elite he has been at limiting runs. So I think you have to give it to him based on that. And then honestly, for the AL, it's difficult, but I like Tarek Skubal right now in the AL. He has been absolutely insane this season so far. ERA just over 2, and I don't know if it's because he's playing in Detroit, but I feel like he's not getting as much love as he should be. And this is a guy that's been absolutely insane so far this year. And both him and Imanaga, 2 lefties that have just been dealing so far this season. So maybe it's the year of the lefty for the Cy Youngs, but those are the 2 I would pick right now.
Maybe. I think in National League, I'm not going to say Imanaga. I'm going to play – Imanaga's definitely up there 1 or 2, but I'm going to play advocate here, and I'm going to go Ranger Suarez. We've just talked about him, but an unbelievable start. He's 7-0 compared to Shota's 5-0 if you take wins and do a super heavy count. But
I don't care about pitcher wins that much.
But he's got a 1.5 ERA, so just slightly above Imanaga, but he's got – almost 10 more strikeouts at 55 compared to Imanaga's 43. His whip is a .72, whereas Imanaga's is .82. Their batting average against are roughly the same, but Ranger Suarez has just been a lovely surprise this year for pitching fans. I didn't really pin him. I pinned him to be good, but I didn't pin him to be great like he's been. And it's just been really fun to see him. So if I'm picking a National League Cy Young, I think you got to go with Ranger Suarez right now. Not got to, but I think you got to talk about him. And then Tariq Skubal, I'm with you. He's been fun to watch, and he's a guy that we put on Cy Young watch at the beginning of the year, and I think he's showing us exactly why we did that. But reading our little game plan here for the show, you have in all caps a little thing that just says "Reds suck." Before we move on to more baseball stuff, so I'll let you go on a rant before we move on, I guess.
Okay. So the Cincinnati Reds right now are 1-9 in their last 10 baseball games. No one not named Ellie De La Cruz can hit a baseball. The starters have been solid, and the bullpen has been decent as well. But the lineup, as I said earlier, could not hit a beach ball with a cricket bat right now. They went out to San Francisco, played a Giants team that's been struggling recently, especially on the pitching side of things. And though they got Logan Webb in one of those games, the other two games they got two kind of no-name guys that you should have been able to absolutely demolish and could not do anything with it all. The only highlight of the weekend was Stuart Fairchild's pinch hit inside the park homer. The series before that could not get a hit versus the Diamondbacks, who have struggled with pitching all season so far. And it doesn't get any easier as the Reds are in their month of the NL West for some reason. I don't know why the schedule was designed like this, but they go back out to Arizona. They have to play the Diamondbacks, and they get the Dodgers 2 times this month, then the Padres again. So they're sending them through an NL West gauntlet right now, and it's the absolute worst time for them to be slumping so hard. TJ Friedel has come back, has not really added the injection of life that this team needs. The platoon bats are not doing anything, no matter which side they're hitting versus. Base running mistakes over and over and over, whether it's Ellie, whether it's Spencer Steer, whether it's Stuart Fairchild, guys just getting completely lost on the bases, making outs on the bases, defensive errors, they keep happening, and eventually this has got to come back to the manager. And if you're looking at David Bell right now, you got to ask, why is your lineup not functional? Why is the defense not functional? Why does no one on this team know how to run the bases correctly? And why, especially, do we keep platooning guys like, oh my God, Santiago Espinal, who could not touch a baseball to save his life, when we have lefties who can at least kind of hit lefty-lefty, and Santiago Espinal couldn't hit anything if it was thrown at 2 miles an hour. So these managerial decisions are absolutely maddening. Last year, people were talking about him as maybe a dark horse manager of the year candidate just because of the rookie core that came out. He didn't create the rookie core. These guys came up and were talented on their own. Then this season, there's been mismanagement of injuries. There was a discovery of a fracture in Christian Encarnacion's strand that's going to keep him out even longer, but he was playing every day with it. So at some point, you got to ask, what is really intrinsically wrong with this team? And I think it starts squarely in that manager's office right now.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the easiest place to look. As soon as something starts going wrong, whether it's quality players playing below where they should, or things just falling apart, especially as quickly as they did, because y'all weren't off to a great start, but you weren't off to a bad start like that you're playing at right now. So I mean, obviously, you're going to look at the manager and say, right. So you're going to look at the manager and say, what's going on? And I mean, honestly, it's a good place to look. However, for your hitting struggles, as you know, I coach a little travel baseball on the side. And I have a fishing pole here, and so what you do is you grab your fishing pole, and you take a giant hook like this one here, and you put a baseball on it, and you just hold it out, kind of like an upside down T, and then you just slowly reel, and they just hit. You just over and over again. They just hit the baseball. You put it back. You slowly reel, hit the baseball. Then you speed up the reel, get like some up and down action, like a sick wicked curveball that y'all can't hit right now. And I don't know. Maybe if we showed that to David Bell, he'd get the guys in the clubhouse just with the little fishing pole drill. So who knows?
I think if you showed that to David Bell, he would take them deep sea fishing.
Hey, team bonding, that could help, man. That could help.
It's so bad right now.
Maybe they're having a Jameis Winston moment where they start interviewing the fish. You a fish? What's that like? But I don't think anybody's
one of the best
crazy.
clips I've seen all year.
I don't think anybody's as crazy as Jameis Winston in the world of baseball. I mean, I don't think there's a comparison in any sport or any. I don't think there's ever a comparison to anything like Jameis Winston. But we love you, Jameis Winston. You're hilarious, and please keep interviewing all sorts of sea life and animals because
Facts.
it's entertaining as hell, frankly. But let's move on to other baseball stuff. The Guardians revealed their City Connects. We've talked about City Connects a lot. I've been pretty hateful of the City Connects this year, probably more, which is shocking because you're one most of the time who's like the old guy, get off my lawn guy. But with the City Connects this year, I have been not for the City Connects. Cleveland unveiled theirs. I'm a fan. I'm saying it. It's not dark. I mean, it's the dark blue, but the pants are sick. The old cream, the stripe, the 3-stripe down the side. Oh, I love a good old school stripe. So they won me.
Well, as soon as I saw the photo release, I knew they were going to have your vote because the pants were not dark. So I knew you would be on board quickly. I think that these uniforms are great.
They're listening.
I think these uniforms are great just as an alternate, but a City Connect concept. I don't know. You mentioned pre-recording that maybe it's just because there's nothing to connect to in Cleveland, but these City Connects are supposed to light them on
fire and dunk them in the sewage river.
They're supposed to capture like the vibe of the city. They're supposed to be, I think Nike said they're like vibrant, imaginative, stuff like that. It's just an alternate blue jersey with a cool number font and some light pants. Like, it works really well as an alternate uniform, and I love it as an alternate, but these City Connects, something's got to change, because either they're like all black or gray with just some light accents thrown in. Like, I like what they did with the Rays one, but when one of your key words is vibrant, you can't make every uniform black and gray and dark. And though the Cleveland one, like I said, is a good uniform as an alternate, I think that Nike's kind of just lost the idea of what they wanted to do with these City Connects. And I don't know. I don't think it's worked, sadly. I would say I like the Reds one because I think it fits I think it fits the vibe of the team well, but the ones like the Padres, like Padres City Connects, Astros City Connects, the Angels City Connects, the Nationals with the cherry blossoms, the Marlins, the bright red jerseys.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many good ways to do this, and I feel like the last, year and a half, ever since the Mariners uniforms came out, I feel like every uniform since then, Nike's just been like, I don't know what to do. And it's kind of frustrating, but I don't know. Maybe they'll figure it out with the St. Louis ones. I don't know what to say, because I feel like I'm complaining about everything here, never really being happy with anything. But it's not the fact that I think the uniforms themselves are bad. I feel like when you're trying to make something vibrant and original, you could have done a bit better than this on that front.
I think sometimes they take into account, like, okay, we can really connect to the city, like with like Wrigleyville, the good neighborhood that Wrigley Field and a lot of Chicago's in. There's a lot of history in Wrigleyville, so they played homage to that with the Chicago flag on the things and in the hat. So you can play homage to the city, like the word City Connect comes from, or you can pay homage to a moment, like the Boston Marathon, a huge deal for Boston every year. They pretty much just made them Boston Marathon uniforms. That's cool too. Or you could pay homage to the team, like we see with the Brewers. How it just says Brew Crew. I think that one was great. They had some like wheat beers type stuff, I think, embedded somewhere, but it really just says Brew Crew, and that's what you get from them, and that's homage to the team. Such like the Marlins. The Marlins was really an homage to I want a minor league team, I think, from way back. I think they were minor league baseball uniforms. So I think they don't. It's not really like they're paying homage to one thing for every team. I think they just kind of choose something different for every team. But in your point to Cleveland, I'm not sure what they're paying homage to. Right? It's a cool jersey, but you can't really look at it and say, "Oh, this is because of this," like there's just nothing like that.
Yeah.
So I get your
apparently
point.
I do they're related
like
to the Guardian statues. Yeah, apparently they're related to like the traffic Guardian statues, anyways? But it's not obvious. Like no one that's not from Cleveland, I think, is going to look at that jersey and be like, "Oh, the Guardian statues." Like,
I don't think people in Cleveland are going to look at it and go, "Ooh, the Guardian statues," because when they named them the Guardians, people are like, "Why? Why are we the Guardians now?" And MLB was like, "Oh, because you have those little statues you got." And you're like,
listen, we could have had the Cleveland Spiders, and these City Connect uniforms could have been like Spider-Man.
That would be awesome. They wear like masks and stuff. Oh, imagine playing in Spider-Man jerseys. We need to get the Savannah Bananas on that for like an Avengers themed type, like everyone in like a different like suit. You have like an Iron Man guy who's just wearing like catcher's gear 24/7 on the pitcher's mound or something. Paint some Iron Man catcher's gear. Then why hasn't that been done yet? We need some Iron Man catcher's gear. Some company out there has got to make some Iron Man catcher's gear. That'd be sweet. I mean, the arc reactor in the middle,
Yeah.
whatever. That'd be awesome though. But before we wrap up with MLB, let's quickly go through our division little breakdown, check down. Much of the same, but a little difference here and there. We'll start with the Central, like always, where the Brewers still hold the lead. I think they're tied with the Cubs last time we recorded this. They're no longer tied, but the Cubs are only half a game back, so not a big deal. The Pirates have then climbed to third at 6.5 back, and the Reds have slid. We've already been over Micah's little tidbit about them the last week. They're seven games back, almost as worse as the St. Louis Cardinals, who we've hated on
this
all
is gonna
year.
be bad.
They're
After all I've talked about the Cardinals all year, if we fall behind St. Louis, that's gonna be bad.
Yeah, luckily we don't have enough Cardinal fans watching this, so they would be at your throat. I may find some Cardinal fans to go at your throat. I know some Cardinal fans now.
Maybe don't do that.
But we'll see. We'll see what mood I'm in, The Phillies still hold the lead in the East. A 2-game lead over the Braves, which is, super interesting. I'm all for it. I love it. Trust me. The Braves 2 games back. The Braves not been great their last 10. They're 5-5. The run differential is also starting to slip. So who knows what's going on with the Braves? We talked about their superstars not being able to perform and how their team was kind of picking them up and carrying the weight of their superstars as a team. That seems like it's no longer happening, and they're really missing the firepower of their superstars early in the season.
Well, they're also really missing Spencer Strider right now because Max Fried has been good, but you're starting to look at that rotation, notice a real lack of depth there, and I think it's really starting to hurt him noticeably.
Yeah, and I've always said with this Atlanta team the past 2-3 years, they don't have the pitching to win a World Series, and Strider helped that argument a lot. And without him, you're just right back to where you were, and they don't have the pitching. If Max Fried is his best Max Fried, he's great. If he's not his best Max Fried, he's okay. But they don't have the pitching to make a deep run. So I think there's a chance we don't see them win the division this year. I think the Phillies have a good shot to win the division. And
it's definitely possible.
Even if the Braves do win the division, I don't see them going far into the playoffs. We've seen it time and time again. Best team in baseball, get to the playoffs. Oh, what's that? They're out of the playoffs ASAP.
Yeah, although
Mets,
this year, watch it with
Nationals
the Braves just win the World Series now. Watch them limp into the playoffs in a bottom wild card, and this be the year they win it all.
That seems to be the trend right now. Diamondbacks last year, so who knows? I know they didn't win it, but it seems to be the trend that we got going. Mets 8 games back, Nationals 8 games back, Miami Marlins 17.5 games back.
Yikes.
Whew, they're out. Yeah. The West,
eliminated.
Dodgers still hold their lead. Yeah. Some guy told me the other day, no one is statistically eliminated, but I was like, there's teams that are gone. There's some teams that are gone. Marlins are on there, White Sox are on there. Those are the 2 top, and then we
Rockies.
get some other ones, arguably. Yes, yes, the Rockies are.
The Rockies are perpetually eliminated.
The Dodgers. Yeah, so Rockies are 14 out of the division to the Dodgers. Dodgers are 27-15 with a plus 74 run differential, 8-2 the last 10. They've been great. This is what we expected. We'll see what they can do in the playoffs. Well, pitching's another thing with them. They're kind of like the Atlanta Braves of last year and 2 years ago. They'll probably win the division by a lot of games. Will they have the pitching to withstand the playoffs? And I know they're getting guys back, but are those guys going to, 1, stay healthy, and 2, be themselves? So, who knows? And then the Padres starting to find their groove, starting to win a little bit more. So 7-3 their last 10. They're 5.5 games out, so still a pretty decent number, but not totally crazy. Arizona Diamondbacks 7.5. We've talked about their struggles. Giants, their pitching struggles, and really offensive struggles. They have really no offense this year. It's just been kind of weird. But we didn't expect them to have a super good offense. We expected them to kind of lean more on pitching, but whatever. They're 8 games out. And then really we get into the interesting divisions now, because the only interesting division in the National League to me is the Central and then the top 2 spots in the East.
Yeah, and also about the Padres here, the Padres here, I do want to say about them, they're really consolidating that 3rd wild card spot right now. We talked about the wild card race a lot. You look at Braves and Cubs are wild card 1 and 2 right now pretty clearly, but then that 3rd wild card where it's been such a logjam The Padres now at 22-21, and then Mets, Nationals, Diamondbacks, Giants all at 19 wins. So Padres are kind of starting to break away in that third wild card there. So the rest of these teams need to kind of figure it out if they want to have a chance to get back to that. Because I think San Diego is still a good team. I think that if they get on form, they could really kind
Oh
of
yeah.
form a breakaway here.
Yeah, and the wild card's pretty even right now. We've talked about at times where we're going to get 4 teams from the Central, 4 teams from the West, 3 teams from the West, 4 teams from the East. Like we've talked about everything, but it seems really even right now. Like we're going to get 2 teams from each division, which is, I mean, you can't argue with that. That's got some good logic, I guess. I mean, it's just plain simple across the board baseball. But in the American League, we'll start with the AL East. The Orioles are in first by half a game to the Yankees. Boston Red Sox have shown flares of good stints where they can play, but they just can't do it for an extended period of time. They're a little streaky at times, so they're 5.5 out. But this was between the Orioles and Yankees. I don't see the Red Sox doing good enough to make a push to win that division. And with how good the teams are in the other divisions, mainly the Central, I just don't see the Red Sox being able to squeak into the playoffs this year. So the Orioles and Yankees are really the only 2 story from that division. And I mean, obviously they're right there. So that was going to be a fun battle to watch unfold the rest of the year. Then went up to the AL West before getting into the Central because the Central's blowing some people away right now. The Mariners hold a lead over the Rangers, kind of the same thing we talked about last week. Oakland's still holding on at 3.5 games back. I know Mason Miller is a huge part of that. I don't think he'll be there in the next few months. I think some teams are really high on getting him. I'm hoping the Cubs are one of them because we got to quit blowing saves, and we almost did it again yesterday with Adbert Alzolay. Won't get into that because Cubs fans will pop a blood vessel. But this one's also going to be between Rangers and Mariners for the division and wild card. That's going to be another race. But the most interesting part of any division this year is the AL Central. They could get almost every team in the wild card at this point.
Except
Guardians
for the White Sox.
have the lead. Well, yeah, I'm not even counting them as a baseball team at this point. The Guardians 25-16, Minnesota Twins 24-16, half a game back, and then Kansas City Royals 25-17, also half a game back. And the worst team in that division, not the worst team in that division. The Detroit Tigers are 4th in that division at 500, 4.5 games out. Every team in that division besides the White Sox are 500 or better, which is incredible. What a run for this division. The Tigers are starting to falter. We'll see if they can save it, but if they get too far down in this division, I'm afraid to say that they're just going to be out. I mean, you can't get too far down in this close division, or you're pretty much out. Maybe the wild card, maybe not. But the Royals, Twins, and Guardians, and we've talked about the surprise of the Guardians, and the Twins are starting to play like the headphone fell out. The Twins are starting to play like we know they can, and the Royals, I knew they could play this way, so I'm not shocked by the Royals being there. But just a fun, tough division of baseball. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. I'm not shocked by the Royals either, although obviously at the start of the year I took the Tigers to win this division, and I think if you would have told me that the Tigers were sitting at 20-20 at this point in the year, I would have said they were second in the division and only a couple games back off first based on how we expected the teams in this division to be, but they've just all been playing far and away above expectations. The Tigers do not have the hitting to keep up right now. The Royals let's talk about Seth Lugo for a minute. That's a guy I really want to give some love to here because he has been absolutely incredible for the Royals. Kind of a lifetime bullpen guy a lot of his time with the Mets, but for the Royals right now, he has a 1.66 ERA and is 6-1 on the year so far in 59 innings pitched, has a whip under 1, batting average against at 206. This is Seth Lugo, and he's just suddenly become one of the best starters in baseball somehow, and I think it's really going under the radar, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for it.
Yeah, no, 100%, and it's been shadowed by some other bigger storylines we've seen in the sport this year, but yeah, it's incredible to see him. He's a name that you've kind of bounced around with different teams, and he's been maybe, nope, okay. And then here he is, just shocking the world this year. So very under the radar type season, but hopefully he gets more recognition down the stretch if he continues this. But yeah, just a surprise for sure for those fans. And I mean, if he can keep that up, he's going to be one of the reasons they're in contention at the end. But that's all we got for baseball. Other than Kyle Tucker is now the MLB leader in home runs at 13. We knew he was going to hit a whole lot of home runs and doubles this year. He's got the lead at 13. Still early. I do think we're going to have a very interesting home run race this season. I don't think it's going to be one or two guys that stand out. I think you're going to have at least four guys who are kind of working their way up together all year. And it's going to be fun to see who's got the most home runs this year. I think it's going to be one of the most fun races we've seen in recent years.
Yeah, it's definitely been close so far, and Tucker is kind of single-handedly trying to drag the Astros off the bottom of that AL West right now. They've moved up into fourth. They still have a long way to go, but if this lineup can finally get back going, I really think that's their only way because the pitching just has not been there for Houston.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think it will get any better. But, I mean, they have some guys that are just old. Verlander is one of those guys, but we'll see. But the home run race is something to look out for because those are always exciting. But what else is exciting is, like we said earlier, NASCAR. NASCAR is super exciting right now for fans and even non-fans. If you're just getting into the sport, I mean, you're striking gold right now. You must think this is the greatest sport alive. But I got news. This doesn't happen every year. I'm so glad it's happening right now. But don't expect this to happen every year. But nonetheless, we'll enjoy it while it's here. Brad Keselowski, 110 win the streak is over. We've been waiting for this moment all year. It's been building and building and building and building. And it's finally here. I think I picked him 4 or 5 times this season. He's definitely the driver I picked the most. And the only reason I didn't pick him to win Darlington was I was like, I picked him enough. They'll get tired. And then I picked Blaney, who I've picked like 4 times anyway. So that went out the window quick. But finally over. Keselowski gets it done in a really – so Darlington was weird. Stage 3, awesome. Great racing for the lead. The passing was it was above average. But stage 1 and 2, kind of boring. You had some things here and there. You had some restarts. You had some pit road races. But other than that, kind of boring. Stage 3 saved it, though. I mean, that restart, the final restart in stage 3, oh, what racing. For Brad Keselowski to hold on that long at the bottom. Yeah, really. I mean, that's just a veteran guy showing that he's a dude and he wants to win more than anything. I don't think you put another driver in that position. I don't think they do it. Maybe Kyle Busch, maybe
Come on,
Truex.
Man. You really gonna slight Austin Dillon like that?
Yes, I'm sliding Austin Dillon like that. 100%. 100%. But there are only a handful of guys that could have done that and held that inside line and to race with a car on the outside for that many laps. I mean, it was incredible. And eventually they did give. You know, they got into each other, got into the wall, and then Buescher with one of the best overtakes we've seen all year. I mean, yeah. that was fun to watch. Just
listen, how about him the last 3 weeks on those like the tiny margin moves? You saw it at Talladega, the little squeeze down to the bottom after the start-finish line.
At
Kansas,
five
wide through the middle. And then now at Darlington, this top-to-bottom elevator move. He's really making a habit out of this recently.
Yeah, and at first he was pushing Keselowski. He's like, all right, I got you, Keselowski. I'm going to push you to the lead. That didn't work out. He sees them get into each other. He's like, well, I can't push him now. It's my race. This is my time, baby. You know, I don't have a win sticker. Yeah, we'll get to that. So then Buescher passes Keselowski and Reddick. And then Reddick kind of, at a few laps, works his way back up to him. Buescher taking some lines that a lot of people are not happy with. You know, I mean, he wasn't really taking the high side in the corners, kind of taking low into the corners. And, I mean, his spotter had to have been telling him, like, hey, bro, Reddick's taking a different line, and he's way quicker. Why don't you try that? And he did, but it was way too late. I mean, Reddick was there when he started taking his line away from him. So I think Buescher's going to look at that once he can see it on TV and be like, oh, shouldn't have done that. But it made for some great racing because then Tyler Reddick, who you were a fan of, made a lot of people angry. He goes, you know what? I think I can make this work. And he tries a slide job into the corner. And he did not make it work. I mean, it didn't work at all. He wasn't even close. He wasn't close at all. I mean, I don't know what he was thinking at all, to be honest with you. He just wrecked them both.
Well, he sent it into 3, and obviously going for that slide job, going for the lead. I will say, I'm going to play devil's advocate here as a Tyler Reddick fan. He never had him cleared. I want to say that first off. Never had him cleared at any way, shape, or form. It was a desperate move, but Also, Chris Buescher did throttle up and hit the wall first. The wreck is absolutely Tyler Reddick's fault, but I think that it was made a little bit worse by the fact that Buescher bounced off the wall kind of as Reddick hit him. But to ruin both of the guys' races like that, I just think it's a little bit of an immature move from Reddick there. You know you have a faster car. Just wait and try to get him another point, because every turn 1 and 2 he had him. Buescher could not run that top line there. You had the speed. Just be a little bit patient, and I think you would have had a better chance later on. And you feel for Buescher. You saw him after the race come up and confront Reddick and be like, I don't have that sticker. I don't have that sticker. You got to race me better. Obviously talking about the checkered flag sticker on the top of the door for the win there, but credit to Reddick, he at least owned up to it. Said, that was my fault. I messed up, man. But I think both of them handled it really well after the race. I think the feelings for both were definitely understandable. But yeah, just a bad move from Reddick, honestly. Even as a Reddick fan, I think the result was made a bit worse by the fact that Buescher bounced off the wall. But the wreck is completely 100% Reddick's fault. And you can't, I think, especially when you have a car that's that much faster, you just have to wait for a better opportunity than that.
Yeah, he had plenty of laps. He got to him within like 3 laps or something, and he had at that point at least 10 more. I'm pretty sure. So I mean, just be patient, make a better move. But another kind of immature kind of move for him is he kept his helmet on, which is probably the smart move if you're Tyler Reddick and you're like 4'9".
Well, dude, he's like 5'2",
and you have Chris Buescher from Prosper, Texas, coming up to you. So probably the smart move for him to keep his helmet on. But I think he crapped his pants. When Buescher walked up and shoved him, I think he went, oh my God. Because, I mean,
listen, if I was like 5'2", Tyler Reddick and Chris Buescher came over to me, I would also be scared.
Like, oh, no. And now, and then my brother was watching it with me. My brother was watching it with me. And he was like, oh, he's got his helmet on. Like, what a pansy. And I was like, it's a safe move for him to have his helmet on because he's going to get rocked if he doesn't have his helmet on. I love Reddick, but I don't think, if I'm picking a driver in a fight, I'm not picking Tyler Reddick. There's a few guys I'm just not picking. Tyler Reddick's at the top of that list. That's something I may pick Austin Dillon over somebody for.
Give me the Tyler Reddick Justin Haley fight for like weakest fight of all time and on the current grid. Which, speaking of, I do want to mention Justin Haley right quick. Yeah, I do want to mention Justin Haley. He ran top 10, like on pace, in a Rick Ware car at Darlington. Finished 9th. Yeah, so anyway, good job, Justin Haley. But more importantly, Brad Keselowski finally back in victory lane. And let's talk about the burnout. It was great to see the American flag back again on the front stretch during the burnout. It was so good. Yes. 10. 100% a 10. It was so good. The tight burnout right there in front of all the crew, the American flag. It was so good. It was absolute cinema. It just perfect.
Yes. I mean, a perfect way to cap off Throwback Weekend. Having your oldest looking driver, I think he's like the second oldest, but your oldest looking driver win a race. So, I mean, perfect way to end Throwback Weekend. But yeah, so Ford, they have broken through. They have finally done it. After a recordly bad season, they've done it. And after losing a bunch of races by less than the time it takes to blink, they've done it. Finally done it. But this week was not good for those who have been doing great all year. You know, Kyle Larson wrecked out towards the end. Some of your high rollers just didn't really show up, you know. So not a great weekend for those atop the point standings. But if you're Josh Berry, you had a good weekend.
Really?
Stewart Haas Racing had Josh Berry in the 3-hole, or not 3-hole, but finishing third, which is great for Josh Berry. Where does that put him?
Josh Berry.
Where does that put him to Hocevar now? How many points back is he from Hocevar?
Josh.
He's above Hocevar in points now.
Yeah, he's above him. He's in 21st now in points, so
he passed
he's
Hocevar
now
this weekend.
He's only a little bit behind Noah Gragson right now. Only about 9 or 10 points behind Gragson.
He's about 30 points. He's 30 points above Hocevar, or give or take. He's a little less than 30. Like 20.
But Chase Briscoe for this team, we talked about last week how he's the highest SHR car in points, and came home top 5 again this weekend. Josh Berry, obviously 33rd to 3rd, is super impressive, but Briscoe, I think, is starting to deliver consistently in these cars. It looks like SHR is slowly getting a bit more speed in these things, and it's really showing recently. I think they're honestly, I would even go out on a limb and say they're better as an overall operation than Penske right now, especially if you look at Logano and Cindric compared to Briscoe, Gregson, Barry. Like, which one of those groups are you taking?
Yeah. I think if you're taking a whole team, I think if you're taking a Ford team right now of complete, oh, wait, I don't want to say what I was about to say. I was going to say you got to look at front row just because Michael McDowell, if Michael McDowell has a win, I think you take front row as the top
The
four
thing
team
is,
this year.
I would say as just on just pure speed, you would have to look at front row, but the issue is there are 3 SHR cars above either front row car in points, and then all Penske
Yeah,
cars are above them in points. So they just haven't been able to finish races.
yeah. But, I mean, mostly Michael McDowell over Todd Gillen just because he's been – I
Todd
mean, Todd
Gillen had
Gillen's led some
the
laps.
Atlanta legacy run.
Yeah, and he's led a bunch of laps this year, but they've all pretty much come because of pit strategy. Every time he's led laps, except for a super speedway, it's because guys pit. He just stays out, hopes for a caution, and it's worked in his favor. I think once or twice this year, once at least.
Yeah,
So
it worked at Kansas
but that's
for
a team
him
that's
too. He
got
had
to
a
do
pretty
that,
decent run at Kansas.
right? So I mean, all credit to him. But let's see. So like we mentioned, it was throwback weekend. So we've come up with our top 3 throwback schemes. But also, Mike Joy, I don't know if you saw this. He was wearing a speed shirt.
The speed
like one of
T-shirt,
those
that
button-up
was so
speed shirts.
good. Yeah,
Yeah, I saw that. They cut to the booth, and I saw
that was
that. And I was
incredible.
like, oh, that's awesome. Did Fox own Speed, or did another big company own Speed?
I have no idea who owns
'Cause-
Speed, but that shirt was cool.
Because I was looking at it, I was like, I didn't know Fox owned the Speed channel, and I'm shocked if they didn't own it. I mean, obviously it doesn't exist anymore, so they're not an active competitor. But I was just shocked that they would
RIP.
let them wear it in the market we have right now. Oh, they did own it. I just looked it up. Fox did own the Speed channel, so there you go. There's that. But yeah, also
That makes sense
great.
then, yeah.
I saw a couple of these logos. These logos are thrown around.
Yeah,
So the old school logo is thrown around a little bit. It's always good to see. But yeah, our
the
top
better
3.
logo.
I'll start with my third favorite, Michael McDowell's Long John Silver's 34. The colors were great. The pirate was pretty cool. It was just, I felt like I was at Margaritaville for Jimmy Buffett. I mean, it was just a really cool looking car. Never eaten at Long John Silver's. Couldn't tell you if their food's any good, but the car
okay.
looked pretty cool.
It's mid.
Yeah,
my number 3,
fried fish.
Yeah, it's yeah. My number 3 is gonna go to Ross Chastain and the Bush car.
Close.
The just some graphic design guy. That had to be the best day of his year because that car with the mountain designs all over it looks so cool. The color they had that one in that like deep royal blue looked so good on that car, and it's a shame we didn't see him on camera more than we did because I think that was one of the better looking cars. Obviously, I have it in my 3 here. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, the old school Bush. I don't know if they came out with cans, old school cans. I'm sure they did because Bush always does something cool like that. But yeah, the old school Bush logo is ingrained in my memory, and it was an incredible car. It's just fun to see around the track. My second was Chase Elliott's. Just the National Guard scheme is a scheme I've watched all the time, and he amped it up when he wore the gloves and I wanted a pair of those gloves when I was a kid so bad just to have them because I was like, those are the coolest gloves ever. And he wore the gloves, and it was awesome. It's a shame we didn't get to see him on camera pretty much at all. I think they only cut to him to show, hey, by the way, Chase Elliott's in last, or he's got a cool paint scheme. But other than that, he was nowhere to be found. They ended up finishing 12th, which was way better than the day he had. So, I mean, credit for him to finish the race. But yeah, all in all, a great paint scheme. Glad to see the sponsors go in like Universe and do that. That was cool for them.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned him finishing 12th. That's kind of just been Chase Elliott all season. Kind of a lot of these races, nowhere all day, finishes close to the top 10 or in it. But my number 2 is going to be Kyle Larson. And I've never wanted a bowl of HendrickCars.com more in my life, watching that car go around the track. The old Terry Labonte Kellogg's throwback. It was so good. And then how about the fire suit that Larson was rocking for that too? That was nice. I loved everything about that throwback. It was so good. So that's going to be my number 2 slot.
Yeah, I almost want to buy the hat him and Terry Labonte were wearing. And just, I mean, having Terry Labonte at the track in a fire suit, and he even did driver introductions and went around the track in the back of the Chevrolet with them. I
Yeah.
mean, that was incredible. And that's why Kyle Larson has landed himself at my number one spot for throwbacks. I mean, they probably talked about his car in the throwback more than anybody. And maybe that's because Terry Labonte was in the booth with the guys. But just incredible. I mean, it was so cool to watch, and hopefully Hendrick continues to do stuff like this in the future years. But also, I'll let you do your number one real quick. But then we got to talk about the teams that didn't do anything. What?
Yeah.
What?
So
what are we doing?
Exactly. But before we get to them, my number one is the car that won the race. It's the Brad Keselowski Castrol, throwback to the Castrol Toms Toyota Super GT car. And that paint scheme has been such a big part of my childhood, growing up on racing games, growing up on Gran Turismo and stuff like that, where that livery on a car is just so instantly recognizable for me, and to see that on a NASCAR was like the coolest thing ever. And then it might also be bumped up a bit because it won the race too, but to see that paint scheme on a NASCAR in victory lane was just the coolest thing ever. And I hopped on a Gran Turismo race later last night as well and jumped into that paint scheme for a little bit just to kind of celebrate. So it was really cool to see that on a NASCAR. I absolutely loved it. Massive shout out to RFK for bringing that into NASCAR. It was just out of this world cool. I loved
the Twitter heat from the race too. They had a lot of bangers.
Yeah,
especially
listen, the Larry McReynolds, the like laser eyes Larry McReynolds, Brad Keselowski won this race was like the best tweet I saw all day yesterday.
It was incredible. Is that Castrol car? You need the little diecast to add to your collection back there?
I don't have the other one up in my room yet, but we have this one. We have this one right here. The old Castrol car.
Are you gonna get the throwback one?
Yes, I am.
Good.
I might end up owning every Brad Keselowski Castrol car at some point because I already have two.
They've all been good.
Why
man.
stop there? You know?
Yeah, I mean they've all been.
Yeah,
good.
they're all so good.
It's definitely not bad cars to own. But the 6 back in victory lane for Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing, and he's finally all that hard work's paid off. Buescher's been there since Keselowski's taken over, but now he gets to go there himself. So great news for the team. Glad to see a premier team like that, or once was a premier team like that, back to form, not fully yet, but hopefully back to dominating the sport, along with the likes of Gibbs and Hendrick, and if RCR can figure it out. But yeah, so now we have kind of a break. It's not a points race this weekend; it's the All-Star race, so not as long and just more fun than anything. So who you got winning the All-Star race, and who do you have getting voted in?
Well, I have Chase Elliott winning the All-Star race. I think that this is going to be a good weekend for him. We've seen him run fairly well at short tracks this season so far, and I think this is going to be the one he finally wins, which I feel like it would be par for the course for Chase Elliott the last couple of years to win a non-points race. I feel like that would kind of check out. But as far as the fan vote, I don't know who's going to end up winning it. My vote would be for Carson Hocevar because I absolutely love him. I hope he wins it. I'm not sure who's going to get it, but I hope it is Hocevar because also his little cameo trick he played on some of the other drivers was hilarious. He's quickly becoming one of my more favorite drivers in the sport right now. So I would love to see Hocevar make it in.
Yeah, Hocevar and Justin Haley, another great kind of campaign. The Haley vote Haley just playing into the NASCAR fan base perfectly, and that was a good little twist. Elliott, I do agree with you. I think he's going to run well. He was one of the guys bouncing around my head. But I was like, if Elliott can't get it done, who's the guy who seems to be getting it done the most when Elliott can't? And they're on the same team, and that's Byron. Byron's kind of filled that role that Elliott once had at Hendrick, I mean, when Larson came in, he was immediately great, and you know what you got with Kyle Larson. But with Elliott, when he started to struggle, the guy who stepped up was William Byron. And I think the perfect embodiment for that would be an all-star race. So I think Elliott's going to run well, but ultimately I think Byron gets it done. I hope Elliott wins. I think Byron does get it done, though. He's never won an all-star race. Kyle Larson has. Elliott has. Both Hendrick drivers that have. We won't talk about Alex Bowman. So Byron's next up, and I think he gets it done this weekend.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I
Alex
definitely
Bowman.
could see that happening as well. And yeah, I know we talk about Alex Bowman a lot, but one thing I do want to point out, I know there's a lot of Alex Bowman hate on this podcast, but let's stop a moment to consider who we're comparing him to. We've talked about this year, the two best teams are Gibbs and Hendrick. Easily it's been. So if you look at the point standings, Larson's in first in a Hendrick car, then it's Truex and Hamlin, Gibbs cars, then Elliott in fourth, Hendrick car, Byron in fifth, Hendrick car, then Tyler Reddick with the Talladega win, who's been one of the better drivers this season, sixth. And then I would say Ty Gibbs and Ryan Blaney, sixth and seventh, are really the only two guys that it's kind of like, well, what are you doing, Alex Bowman, for him to be behind them? But he's sitting in ninth. It's not like he's been terrible this season. I think that for Alex Bowman, he's having a pretty good season, actually. He's finishing off a lot of these races decently. It's just the fact that the guys he's with right now are probably three of the premier drivers in the sport. I don't think that's helping him much at all, but I think that he's actually been performing pretty decently so far this season. Is top 10 in points, doesn't have a stage win yet, and has only led 6 laps, but has 8 top 10s, 4 top 5s, and only 1 DNF. So I think for a fourth car in the team, that's pretty solid, honestly, at this point in the year.
He finished 8th at Darlington last weekend. So, I mean, another solid day for him. And maybe he'll change our minds. I hope so. I really do hope that Hendrick can get all 4 cars to victory lane and have a powerhouse with all 4 cars. I mean, it may get boring out in some time, but who knows, you know? I mean, Gibbs kind of had that a few years back, so maybe it's Hendrick's turn, and we'll find out. But All-Star Race, always good fun. North Wilkesboro, new tire compounds, which no one really knows a whole lot about what they're going to do.
Yeah.
But interested to see how they react and work and whatever. Maybe we get some freaky weather like we had this year to make some tire fall off happen. But in other news, right before we press record, NASCAR announced an in-season tournament for 2025, which I think is going to be another Dash for Cash type deal. And the question is, does it replace the All-Star Race, or what does it do?
I don't care what it does. I hate it. I hate it.
Of course you
we
do.
saw this year.
Get off my lawn.
Neither of us are. I do. Well, exactly. Get off. Neither of us are NBA guys, I know, but the NBA implemented a pointless in-season tournament this year that not many people liked. And for NASCAR, the only way this works in my mind is if this is an Xfinity Dash for Cash thing. Because if you do anything else with this, what's the point, honestly? Like, you're getting further and further away from this being a year-long competition in a racing series. You already have gimmicks at the end of the year with how the playoffs are set up right now. And then you add this into the season, there better not be playoff points awarded for this. I'm going to say this right now. If there are any playoff points on the line for this in-season tournament, I'm going to lose my mind. That would be the dumbest thing ever. Because imagine just some random, let's say, I don't know. Let's look at the point standings here. Let's say that Joey Logano somehow wins the in-season tournament and is 17th in points, but manages to point his way into the playoffs, and he sneaks in. He's like 15th in points and makes the playoffs, but because he won the in-season tournament, he has like 50 playoff points and just gets an auto bid to Homestead for no reason. Like, this better not be part of this thing. It better just be just the $1 million they advertise it as, because if you attach playoff points to this, I think this is going to be an absolute disaster.
Well, how many races is it? Is that out yet? Is there like a set number of races?
5.
Okay.
5.
So they have to be point races, because you can't just have 5 non-points races in the middle of your season. Like, that just doesn't happen. So they have to be point races, obviously. So, I mean, unless one's not a point race, like you do a build up to the All-Star race, and then your final kind of, I don't know, it's weird. Racing, you can't really do tournament, so I don't know how they're going to format it, but if you have like a final championship in the tournament, it would have to be like an All-Star. I don't know. Hopefully we get more details on this, because I'm just at a loss right now. I have no idea how this.
Hopefully we don't get more details and they decide not to do it.
So obviously we don't know the fan feedback yet, because we're recording right now. But once we get off and later in the week, we'll get some more feedback from the fans. But
I don't know. Let's check the fan feedback. Let's see what the fans are saying right now.
But you can't do more than one non-points race. Like, if you want to cap it with the All-Star weekend, like say, oh, it's the last 4 weeks, and then the last race of the in-season tournament is the All-Star weekend. I could see that happening. I don't know what the format would be, but I could see that happening. But you can't have more than one non-points race in the heart of the season. I mean, that'd be stupid.
Okay, so there's a 32-car bracket here, and the bracket gets shrunk each race. So it looks like there's like head-to-head matchups between cars each race. and it gets shrunk down until there is a winner in the last race from the final 4 cars that are left, one from each bracket. So they're basically putting a March Madness bracket tournament into like summer for no reason, because these are on the 5 races on TNT. These are going to be on the 5 TNT races next year. And so a lot of the comments on these things are talking about, this is like what Denny Hamlin mentioned. People are saying, get rid of the playoffs if you're going to implement this. This came out of nowhere. Some people like it because they think it could add rivalries, but a lot of the comments are, if you're going to implement this, get rid of the playoffs and a lot of stuff like that. So basically, they've stuck a March Madness bracket onto the TNT races, is what it looks like.
Are they going to manufacture fistfights on pit road? Like, what if they do this, and then by the end of it, every driver just hates
manufacture something?
But by the end of this, every driver just hates each other because they lost head-to-head, and they're just all going at it, and then we just have, like, they all show up on WWE the next week. Like, because TNT owns WWE, right? For now, at least, until Netflix gets it. So, dude, this is a whole ploy. We just figured it out, Micah. We just figured this out. We just Sherlock Holmes this thing. They're going to get all the drivers that hate each other and have all these rivalries, and they're going to have a WWE special where it's just NASCAR drivers WWE, and we can finally see Chris Buescher rock Tyler Reddick's mustache off his face.
Listen, one quad of this bracket better read like Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano down. We better have like a chaos quadrant.
Like the villains bracket over here.
Yes.
That honestly, hey.
And then the other side will be like drivers no one cares about, and you'll have like Corey Heim, John Hunter Nemechek, Alex Bowman, Austin Dillon. Yeah.
And then you have like just the old guys no one likes, and we'll put Ross Chastain there. It's like Ross Chastain,
Martin Truex,
bring Ryan Newman back, just cause Michael McDowell. Just all the old guys. How do you think Chase Elliott feels about this?
I guarantee you Chase Elliott would give a 2-minute interview in this kind of voice about why he doesn't know if this is a good idea yet or not.
In-season tournament? Never heard of her.
Exactly.
Well, I guess, yeah, I have no idea how that's going to shape up, but I'm nervously excited. We'll put it that way. I'm nervously excited. But I know we're kind of rambling on recently, so we'll wrap up the episode with F1. We'll wrap up this episode talking about F1. We talked about Miami last week, so now we go to Imola this week. Ferrari's has some news, some more upgrades.
You're gonna get shot for saying it like that.
Sorry, Imola. I'm not Italian, man. I'm from.
It's a new disease. What are you talking about?
I'm from the deep south, brother. We don't have much Italian. Yeah. I mean, we have an Olive Garden, and that's, if I said that in an Italian's face, they'd probably shoot me. So we don't, not a whole lot of Italy going around here. Chef Boyardee's in my pantry. I can go grab him, get him to pronounce it. But not a whole lot of Italian heritage where I'm at right now. But yeah, so Ferrari's got some upgrades. So break those down.
So there's a lot of stuff that's changed on the car. The top of the rear wing and like the side of the rear wing is built a little bit different. The big one is the shape of the side pods. They look a lot more like that Red Bull with just the one inlet at the bottom and not really a big lower hang on the side pod. It's a lot more sculpted down the side. There's a new little notch in the floor. There's a couple things with the front wing end plates, and I think there's a couple other things. Yeah, the back shoulders of the car where like the engine cover are, those have been raised a bit, kind of like what you see on the Red Bull with some more channels. So their upgrades look good. I'm not an aerodynamicist by any means. I am not Adrian Newey, but just based on the pictures, they look like they might be effective.
You look like you work for Ferrari.
Thanks.
With the outfit.
Thanks. Yes. But because of these upgrades, I'm going to fully buy in and drink the Ferrari Kool-Aid this weekend. And for my predictions for Imola, I have Charles Leclerc bringing it home this weekend. I have him winning the race. We're going to put Verstappen in second, and Carlos Sainz completes the podium. I'm fully buying into the Ferrari upgrades. I can't wait until this time next week where I am very disappointed.
Well, last time a team brought upgrades to the track was McLaren to Miami, and they won. They won the race and showed incredible speed. Can Ferrari do that, or is Ferrari going to shoot themselves in the foot? We'll find out next time.
Well, Leclerc's a new race engineer too. Leclerc's got a new race engineer.
He does.
Xavi is left, so hopefully there is no more "we are checking" every time Leclerc has a problem. Hopefully they can just fix it. So
yeah.
And then why don't we hear your predictions here? You appear to have gone, let's see, very boring.
Boring? Hold on now. I have Verstappen in first. Sure, that's boring, but it's right. So don't know why you're getting antsy. And then I have Norris. I think McLaren's going to continue what they did in Miami, and I like we talked about. I think Norris just is a little better than Piastri right now. So I have Norris in second. You can kind of flip flop my 2 and 3. I have Sainz completing the podium like you. I don't have Leclerc in the podium. I think Sainz is just going to get done over Leclerc. I mean, we've talked about their kind of battle all year, and I think Leclerc's kind of gotten the upper hand the last few weeks, and I think Sainz is going to take it back from him this weekend. So I have Norris and Sainz. Then maybe Leclerc, probably fourth or fifth, depending on what car Perez brings. Because if he brings a great Red Bull, then, who knows? But I have Sainz in that 3 spot for now.
I just think that Leclerc right now is driving on form. I think he has the speed on Sainz. And then Imola is a track Leclerc, the first few times has been good at historically. So I have faith in him. I think the new upgrades will do well. And then one more thing I do want to talk about here for Imola is they've installed a lot more gravel and a lot less runoff, which is something F1 fans are always talking about is good because you have less track limits violations and less lap times deleted when you go off you're in the gravel. And so there's gravel that's been added. The hairpin at Imola, once you go up the hill, that left-hander at the top of the hill, there's a lot less runoff there, a lot more gravel. Then down into Aqua Minerale, there's a lot more gravel on the side of that there. And then at the top, I think there's some more at the chicane at the top of the hill there too. So Tamburello, the first chicane lap already has gravel, so not really much more they could do there. But all over the track, they've kind of been putting gravel wherever they could find space. And I like it. Make the margins for error a lot smaller, make the guys actually stay on the track. And I think this could be very entertaining. And I can't wait to see which gravel trap Logan Sargent goes into.
Oh, burn. He's the Austin Dillon of our F1 talks now, I guess, huh?
Yeah, it hurts to see the only American be so slow, but here we are.
Yes, it does. Maybe we put him in a Ferrari. Put him in one of those ponies, prancing ponies, and see what he does.
We just send Kyle Larson to F1. That's how we get a fast American.
Dude, I wish the FIA wasn't the FIA. Like, if they would let that some cool like that happen. Like, if Kyle Larson races in Las Vegas, they just add a 21st car. Like, why is that so difficult for the FIA to have fun?
Well, so the FIA has this super license system where you have to have a certain amount of points to acquire a super license, and you know how many super license points you get for winning the NASCAR Cup Series championship?
6?
I think it's like 4. And whatever it is, it's such a low number. You get the same amount of super license points for finishing third in like regional Formula 4. It's so terrible.
Yeah, I saw a breakdown. This guy talking about if a NASCAR driver can get the super license. And he said even Jimmy Johnson wouldn't have been able to get a super license under the FIA. Yeah. Which is... I mean, granted, I don't think Jimmy Johnson would have done well in F1. I'm saying that, but
no,
really,
the F1 cars are so you can't hang the rear out on an F1 car. I do not think Jimmy would have been good in that environment at all.
Right, but I just wish they'd have fun sometimes. Like if he goes out there and wins the Indy 500, let him race Las Vegas, man. You want to get fans watching? You want to have the most watched race event of the year, dude? I may fly to Las Vegas. I won't be able to get the race because I don't have that kind of money, or eat a chicken sandwich there because they're $400. But I'd be in Las Vegas. I'd go on top of a casino and just binocular it and be like, "Oh, is that him?" So who knows? But
oh no, he's been crashed out by Lance Stroll.
Logan Sargent dive bombs and takes out the other American. But yeah, that's another fun episode. I think that's all we got to cover. You got anything else?
Yep. That is it for this week. Yeah.
How's your sim rig coming? I know you're building one of those.
The sim rig is going well. Let's give some scuffed camera angles to this. Actually, we got the wheel here.
You've been sitting there with the wheel in front of you this whole time.
I have, yeah. The wheel's at the desk. The computer is next to the wheel. I have the monitor back behind me right now. So yeah. Heck yeah.
Got to get that practice in here with the summer,
Exactly.
So I don't embarrass you when we get back to school.
Listen, I won a GT4 race today by about 10 seconds, so let's bring it. Come on.
How old were those kids? 9, 8, 12?
I have no idea, but they were all rated driver rating A on Gran Turismo with me, so.
Well, that's good news. But anyways, we'll see y'all next week. Make sure y'all stay tuned. Adios.